Hi, and welcome to the School District Prevention Planning video training series, where we'll help you put your PACE to work. Today, you've joined us for video number 4, where we'll be covering tabs 2 through 4, analyzing your data and setting your priorities. But before we get started, just want to remind you that you can visit the website here to download supporting documents as well as this PowerPoint. And while we're together, we'll be covering the bottom portion of tabs 2 through 4. You would have already worked through the top portion of those tabs. And then the bottom, you'll be doing a team discussion and you'll be analyzing your data, which will then help you narrow your focus and select your priorities. And then when you're finished with that part of the work, we'll then talk a little bit about creating problem statements over in your goals tab of your tool. So let's get started and jump right into your tool. So as a reminder, you and your team would have already looked at the data that you can see here in each one of your tabs. You would have taken a minute to see where maybe there were some trends. You would start thinking about what are maybe specific grade level data looking like. And so today in the video, what we want to do is we want to walk you through fairly briefly through the bottom portion. Because once you've done that analysis and that exploration, you want to go through an analysis process of kind of understanding what is popping off the page, where do you think you might want to set your resources. So let me walk through the tool just very briefly. Just like in the other portions, when you see the red corner within a cell, if you hover over that cell, you'll have directions pop up. Anytime you see a pink area, this is an area that you can and should type in. If you have previous work completed, that work will be included in red. So you'll have some throughout the course of time, you'll be able to track your notes as you're going through. The next portion here, you'll go through thinking about your areas of concern and you'll start rating those, kind of thinking about, in the space of kind of narrowing down a larger list into a smaller list. You'll then select your priorities here. We'll talk a little bit about data gaps and then action reporting. So going back up here to the first part of this, the bottom portion, these are some questions that, if you recall, when we had suggested that you be thinking about the magnitude of the issue, what does the trend look like, how are you comparing, your district is comparing to the state and the county. We wanted you to also think about maybe grades, maybe if there's some specific school building, building level, if you know an issue is occurring, kind of thinking about those subpopulations. And what you're going to do is within this area, you will be able to make notes about team analysis here, be able to track over time what you've seen. As I said, any previous work will be included here. Also, when I mentioned earlier about going to the website and downloading some of the supporting documents, there's a really great document here that are in the website there that looks just like this page. It's a Word document. You can type in it if you want to use it to take notes during a meeting. It is there for you to use. We want to encourage you really, to go in. You could also, if you'd like, share that worksheet with your team. If you wanted them to take some notes, they could use it before your whole team got together again around some analysis. And then you could go in and just summarize the notes that you would like to include here. So again, don't forget that website is a really good place to get some information. So once you've gone through and your team has answered questions, you then are going to want to choose your top 5 areas of concern. You can see here any previous concerns that were listed here will be included. You will have the most recent information included in your tool. One of the things here that we know that this area, what we would like for you to do, this is where you're going to rate each one of your areas of concern, with the idea being that you're trying to narrow down that list and you're trying to narrow your lens around where your priorities need to be. So I've given some a little brief example here of looking at vaping marijuana in 2021. Again, your first column, it's about what's the magnitude and the impact of the outcomes of this issue. You see when you click here and you have a drop-down box, 5 would be the highest impact, and 1 would be the lowest impact. You look at going to your next box, you then would think about your concern about how severe is it? You know, what is the severity of the outcome here? Again, 5 being the most severe, 1 being the least severe as far as outcomes go. You then will think about time trends, and you can see with the drop down here, is it increasing, decreasing, maybe staying the same, fluctuating over time? And especially as we really start using this tool long term, you'll really be able to see, you know, the time trends really well. Also, we want you to think about these comparisons. If you recall, at the top, anything that was in the county, your school district as compared to the county and the state, if you were much higher, you were in red. A little bit, you know, just a little bit higher, you were in orange, and then elevated, slightly elevated, you would be in yellow. About the in But I want to again reiterate, just like we did in our previous videos, just because you have areas that are popping up as red or orange or yellow doesn't automatically mean that that should be a priority. One of the things, that's part of the reason we do this rating exercise here, because just because something is much higher, maybe the magnitude isn't that large. Maybe there's not that many students who are experiencing this issue. So again, very important that that you use this process to kind of think through and really help you narrow down your priorities, because ultimately what we would like for you to do is have a maximum of maybe 3 priorities within each of your tabs here. Overall, we're looking for you to have a maximum of 6 problem statements. So again, thinking about this, you may only have 1 or 2 in each tab. You may only have 1 in this tab. You may have more in mental health tab. It really kind of this is why looking at this part of the process as a whole is very important. So again, thinking about, going back up here, any notes that you can take here, just like we have suggested before, whether it's here, saying what grades, what locations, just keeping some good notes will really, really help you in the long run. Again, same thing here. Include any notes that you would like to help in your description, describing why you selected this, what are some specific priority areas or specific grades or subpopulations within this priority area that you would like to focus on. And then finally, when we come down here, these last 2 areas are really for thinking about if during your data analysis, maybe you thought, wow, I surely wish we had, we were looking at social determinants of health, or maybe ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, or some other data source. This is where, again, good place to take a note so that, we can see if a lot of folks are asking for a specific data source, maybe we can try to include it in the future. So very important for us to hear from you, because we do want to see what you'd like to have included. And then finally, your last area down here is about your action report. Now with this action report, if you recall, in the top portion of your tool, you had, I'm going to go up here real quick so you can see, if you recall, you had where you could check if you wanted this to be part of, your part of your action report, and then you were going to make some notes here. Basically down here you would have on the bottom, this is where you would give us a heads up about what you would like to include in the action report, maybe some specifics to think about. I really, really want to encourage you to use this space, because it will save so much time on the back end when we go, you've worked through everything and we're writing that action report for you. So you've moved through, that was fairly quick, but we've heard from those who've done the process that this part of the tool is pretty intuitive. But you've gone through, you've found out what your areas of concerns are. You've talked about, you've decided your priorities. Now, once you've gone through and you've done each of this work, you've done this, again, you can see here, this is the mental health tab in the bottom, looks exactly the same. Again, you're going to work through, same thing with your school and community. You're going to work through this process. And then once you've done that and you kind of have an idea of where your problem areas are, what we would like for you to do is consider going ahead and skipping ahead up to your SMART Goals tab. And this is your tab down here right after your risk and protective factor. And what we'd like for you to do is to write your problem statements. Now, these statements are not based on any individual data source. The problem statement itself, it's big, it describes what's going on. You can see in this part of the tool that you will have an area to be able to have up to 6 problem statements. And the example that I've included here, some of them are more specific, have a little bit more information around them. Some are less specific because what you're going to do when you set the goal, once you get to this space after you've worked through your PAYS, risk and protective factors, we then will have you go in and look at specific data points, but we'll get to that in a future video. At this point, thinking about these problem statements, again, in a broad way, because what this is going to do, you then, once you've created these, you then are going to take and transfer what you have created for your problem statement in your tab, in your SMART Goals tab. You then will transfer this over to your logic model tab. I just have an example here to show you what it would look like. Again, same thing. Again, remember, our logic model is here. We're going to be creating a visual graphic of what all your great work is showing and your priorities and all the areas where you're going to work. So to wrap up, you will have gone through and analyzed the bottom portion of your tabs down here. You then will have selected your priorities. We ask too that you then move over, create your problem statement so you'll have an idea of what the problems are that you are thinking about, looking at where you want to go, and ultimately create some goals. Then once you've created them there, you'll take a minute and you'll transfer these over into your logic model. So all of this process is building onto one part of each other. This is definitely an area that is very important because we know when we move on to video 5, our next video, where we'll be talking about prioritizing your risk and protective factors, it's going to be important you know where your issues are, because your risk and protective factors are going to help you understand what's causing those issues. So we hope you're able to join us for video 5 when you get to that point. Know that if you have a question, please email us at sap@montcopa.org anytime. Also, the website is listed here again if you would like to go and download the supporting documents that we talked about. And we do really appreciate you joining us today, and we'll see you next time.